Advanced combat mech. Seriously? There's more? Hey guys, Mr. Fister here, and today I'm taking you back to Learn Town, where we will see how some other mechanics of World of Warcraft work, and what we can do to be a better human being and a better player. Now it is all too clear to me, for the vast majority this won't have any practical purpose, or that for the vast majority a simple "what do I even do?" guide would be best suited. But this is the stuff I'm interested in, so this is the stuff I will be talking about. Now what I will be talking about is some of the stuff I left out in the previous video, even though I should have possibly covered it there, and some of the other stuff that I might have planned for a threat video, but I will use this one for it instead. And considering how deep we go, we might even have to make a whole another video just for some of the interesting stuff regarding threat. Now let's kick things off with the crit cap. Let us recall the "what on earth is happening" table from the previous episode, and let us observe what would happen if we were to somehow get 100 crit. The table would transform into something like so. Now you might be amazed at this, but as we can clearly see, even if we have 100% crit, we will still miss, we will still get dodges, and most importantly, we will still have those pesky glancing blows eating 40% of our hits, making them unable to crit. So our effective crit chance for this example would be around 25% and around 45% if we were to be standing behind the boss. So as you can tell, for a two-handed user with no hit gear, the effective crit cap is around 45%. However, for a person using dual wielding, the cap is much lower. If, again, that person has no hit gear, since the only attacks that can crit are those that are pure white damage. Now, how do we raise the crit cap? We will have to invest into hit gear, thus raising the amount of attacks that actually hit. Remember, we're still talking about this as if it were 100% crit. Now for a two-handed wielder, this is pretty straightforward, since in order to hit cap their yellow and white hits, they just need 9% hit. However, for the vast majority of dual wielders, the story doesn't end there. Now considering your average rogue, he uses his weapon and he is at around 9% hit, but he's really hesitant to go over, since he never misses a single sinister strike and he doesn't really mind missing a white hit here and there. Well, for that person it is advisable to go over 9% hit to expand his crit cap. Now, if you're wondering how do you even get to the crit cap, well, that just shows how little you have considered world buffs and consumables, which boost the crit rating considerably, and it is not uncommon to go way over 40% crit. Now let me just give you a few hints here. And at 9% as a rogue, your crit cap is 39. And if you want to bump it up to 45%, you need 15% hit. This is even more important depending on how much of your damage white hits actually are. And hopefully we can now bury this topic and move on to the thing warlocks have too much of, tanks can get enough of, and fury warriors never consider. And that is threat. Yes, we will finally demystify how this works. How do we even get on the threat table? Here are some of the ways we get on the threat table. Body pulling, dealing damage, debuffing the mob. Exceptions are Hunter's Mark, Mind Vision, and Mind Soothe, which do not put you on the threat table. Healing a friendly target already on the mob's threat table. Buffing a friendly target already on the mob's threat table. And raid boss pulses, which happen every 2 seconds and put everybody in the instance into combat and on the threat table. And lastly, in combat proximity, which means that some mobs periodically put players near them into combat and on their table. This might help you understand why a mob ended up chasing after you even if its primary target died and you apparently...
I'm just trying to tell you, I ain't did nothing.
Next, let's observe what actions generate threat and at what amount. The first one being damage. 1 point of damage equals 1 point of threat. 1 point of healing, however, gives you 0.5 threat. Debuffs and buffs all give varying amounts of threat depending on the buff or debuff in question, and reapplying them continues to generate threat. And then we have the power gains, which also give threat. Now power gains would be considered mana and healing potions, but also rage potions and thistle tea. And a few disclaimers for power gains. MP5 and HP5 do not generate threat. Power gain threat is split evenly among all mobs in combat. Power gain threat is not affected by stance modifiers. Drinking causes threat. Before use, please consult your doctor or clinician. Now there is another aspect to all of this that we must take into consideration. There are threat multipliers, also refers to as stance multipliers. These are all effects such as those that increase threat, like bear and dire bear form, or those that reduce it, such as those of Blessing of Salvation. It is important to note that these multipliers themselves multiply, and we will look at pretty much all of them, starting with the threat daddy himself, the warrior. A warrior in both battle and berserk stance has a threat multiplier of 0.8, while a warrior in defensive stance has a multiplier of 1.3, and the multiplier of 1.495 with 5 out of 5 in the Defiance talent. Druids in bear form have the same 1.3 multiplier, which increases to 1.495 with the Feral Instinct talent. The rogue has a natural, permanent 0.8 threat multiplier. Blessing of Salvation multiplier is 0.7, while Tranquil Air Totem multiplier is 0.8. There's also Priest's 5 out of 5 Silent Resolve talent with the multiplier of 0.8, and Mage's Frost Channeling with 0.7 with 3 out of 3, and Arcane Subtleties 0.8 with 2 out of 2 for Frost and Arcane spells respectively. And finally, there is the threat threshold. The threshold of threat where the mob switches its target to the highest on its list. Now this doesn't happen whenever someone's threat goes slightly above the person that is first on the list, but rather it happens when the top person is at 110% of the current aggro holder's threat for melee or at 130% for ranged. So as a mage, you really have to work your balls off to pull threat compared to that Fury Warrior. And lastly, I will go into some interesting side notes regarding various cute threat things. Popping a rage potion not only gives you rage, but also provides you with a good chunk of threat, since 1 point of rage gain is 5 threat. Taunt instantly gives you the same amount of threat as the current aggro holder permanently, and forces the mob to attack you for 3 seconds. Druid's Growl works the same way, however Challenging Shout and Mocking Blow do not. Feint rank 4 reduces the threat by 600 points of damage, that is then multiplied by your usual threat multipliers. With no buffs, it ends up being 480 threat. Phase reduction, however, is not affected by threat multipliers, and it temporarily reduces 820 of the user's threat. Spells such as Mind Blast, Earth Shock and Searing Pain cost 2 threat per point of damage. Paladins receive only 50% of the healing threat. Feint Death is a total threat wipe. Same as the Rogue's Vanish, however a vanished rogue is susceptible to bosses in combat pulses, while the hunter is not. And that would pretty much conclude this incredible episode that delves a little deeper into the funky mechanics of the game we all love and play forever and ever and ever. Thank you for sticking out so far, and I would hope you consider subscribing or even sharing. And know that Big Boy Stinky loves you. Take care.